Thank you so much to the great panel before me. There's a lot to navigate in the realm of cybersecurity, both in today, but especially as technology develops and we move into the post-quantum era. And you'll hear a lot of terms thrown around, like these acronyms and other lingo like quantum safe, quantum resistant, cryptographic relevance, crypto agility, and this can be somewhat convoluted. And so I'd like to provide a little bit of clarity and insight and overview into some of the most popular proposed solutions to cybersecurity. Okay, so we know the problem of Q-Day, right? The day when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer will be able to break some of our legacy encryption protocols, specifically those most vulnerable being the asymmetric public key infrastructure protocols like RSA, Diffie-Hellman. You've probably heard a lot about this problem, and there are many proposed solutions to this, this quantum threat. And I like to categorize them into three separate buckets. And within them, there are variants of these. But generally, we see the first bucket being post-quantum cryptography. These are new math problems, new algorithms, and classical encryption crypto systems to replace the legacy infrastructure that we've been relying on for decades. Okay? In the other two buckets, we have QKD and what we call QSC, quantum secure communications. And with these buckets, we're actually using quantum to protect from quantum attacks. Okay, we're using the properties of quantum physics rather than assumptions on mathematical hardness, computational complexity. Here we're really using quantum communication and the properties of physics to secure our data. I really like to shout out this report by the RAND Corporation and DHS and CISA. They came together and really assessed how serious is this threat, and especially on our critical infrastructure. And they did a great job of assessing these over 50 national critical functions. And these are not just digital systems, but infrastructure that our society relies on. Okay, the ability to conduct trustworthy elections, to generate and distribute electricity. Okay, and this report, really digestible kind of stoplight report assessing the scope of the quantum safe migration, the cost, and really what is it going to take to migrate to a post-quantum critical infrastructure. So definitely check this out. I really like it. Okay, so when is Q-Day going to happen? We get this question a lot. No one can tell you for sure, but I can tell you that with every advancement in both theory and software, as well as with hardware, the time to Q-Day gets shorter and shorter. Okay, there's many great promises and potential in quantum computing, but with great power comes great responsibility. So I'd just like to shout out a few recent advancements that get the field very excited about the promise of quantum computing and the scale, but every single one of these advancements kind of shortens that timeline to Q-Day. So we're seeing a lot of announcements around error correction and logical qubit demonstrations as we inch towards logical qubits and fault tolerance. Okay, we're seeing quantum volume and qubit counts increasing. We're seeing modular quantum computing roadmaps as we're starting to scale beyond one chip. And also reductions on Shor's algorithm, right? We used to think this would take millions and millions of physical qubits. And with advancements in theory and algorithms, variational algorithms especially, the requirements for a CRQC are reducing. So the timeline is getting shorter and shorter. So this isn't all fear, but we get this question a lot working in this space. Which is the better solution, right? We have math-based, we have QKD, QSC, and this is somewhat akin to this analogy I like to make around fruit. What is the better fruit, right? It's subjective, but at the same sense, they are all fruit, and we can make objective comparisons. But the point I want to make here is that they're good for different things, and cybersecurity is not just one size fits all. There are different pieces of the puzzle that these technologies can provide. So PQC, right? We have asymmetric encryption. We have public key infrastructure that is baked into the fabric of a lot of our digital systems. We have lattice-based cryptography, math-based cryptography, which is easier to integrate on existing chips and devices. In QKD and QSC, they hold some other properties that PQC will never be able to claim, things like information theoretic security. QKD, QSC, these are great for establishing symmetric keys, as we heard of. Eavesdropper detection, this is not something we can do with any sort of classical crypto system. Okay. So I'll conjecture that the quantum safe strategy is the fruit salad analogy. Now we bring these together and we have this layered defense in depth with nutritional diversity in math and physics. Okay, we'd like this quantum safe strategy to be multi-use for different cryptographic tools, but also other applications. And we need to be cryptographically agile. This is a changing landscape. We're seeing novel quantum platforms, new attacks being found. So we need to be agile. So I'm sure as you heard over the last few weeks, all the buzz around PQC and the recent NIST standards, FIPS 203 through 205. And just to dive a little deeper here, they released 3 standards. They're releasing a 4th soon around digital signatures, as well as Crystal's Kyber, which was standardized for replacing the public key infrastructure we rely on today. There are some trade-offs with this. I mentioned it's easier integration that was relative to QKD and QSC, but depending on the kinds of devices we're talking about, there are some problems and challenges with respect to rolling out PQC immediately. So it's important to start now. QKD, as we heard of from Simon in the panel, there are quite a few variants of BB84, but this prepare and measure field of QKD, a very robust commercial ecosystem with pioneering companies like ID Quantique and Toshiba, who have really made great strides in commercializing this technology and deploying these networks across the globe. There are a variety of prepare and measure QKD protocols, which are great. So the point I want to make here is these are based on single photon technologies, in the sense that with BB84 and the variants, they leverage the property of superposition of quantum mechanics to do security. Okay. Because of all the great advances in these commercial deployments, it really kind of highlights and underpins the importance of key management here. And we spoke about scaling quantum networks and interconnecting networks both across borders and cross countries. Key management will play a critical role in facilitating the interconnectivity of these networks, regardless of the underlying QKD vendors you may be selecting. So key management is important and critical for things like, how do we route keys around? What are policies about key rollovers? Key storage, key buffers, what happens when there's a denial of service attack? How do we remediate that? What's our notions of trust in this architecture here? So this KMS layer is really critical for interoperability. Okay, moving into QSC, and this is the family of entanglement-based protocols. You'll hear quantum networking, you'll hear the quantum internet. This kind of falls under the umbrella of secure communications protocols based on entanglement and superposition as well. Okay, so there's a whole family of QKD protocols that are entanglement-based, and this can get a little confusing because they hold different properties. Entanglement-based protocols rely on quantum repeaters and a multi-use infrastructure, this entanglement fabric that can be used not only for QKD, but for other secure comms. There's direct communication, teleportation. I liked the question about the kinds of data that we're going to be sending over these networks. Is it just keys? But as quantum computing advances, is it going to be qubits, right? Okay, so they are all fruit, and we can have a very healthy debate about these technologies. These are the things we should be talking about when comparing these. How do the attack profiles change over time with these new PQC standards, with today's QKD technology, and with QSC moving forward? Implementation security versus theoretical security. At the end of the day, these are implemented on boxes, on hardware, and we have to consider all the side channel attacks. Okay. We can have discussions around use cases, functionality, which pieces of the puzzle do these 3 solve? Market maturity, cost, economics, these are all fair debates to have, urgency, timelines. Okay. But there are trade-offs, and this can be hard to navigate. So, the point I want to drive home with this talk is really not to put all of your eggs in one basket, in these new standards, in lattice problems, in prepare and measure, or even QSC, right? There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Okay. It's important to keep up with algorithmic advancements, both from PQC side in quantum computing as well, to understand, how does that timeline shift? And let's prepare for these quantum threats while also investing in all the great potential that quantum can give us. Okay, so I like to end with, this sounds great, like we want to connect everything, this is all very kumbaya, but there are many different intersection points of this hybrid architecture where PQC QKD, and entanglement can all coexist. Okay, so let's talk about how these can intersect at the physical layer. What can quantum do for security at the physical layer in the sense of position verification, eavesdrop detection, and then the cryptographic integration is going to be really important. How can we use quantum entropy, QRNGs, entanglement, QKD keys as seeds for PQC algorithms, these kinds of key mixing strategies, right? So I think that deserves quite a bit of attention. Network architecture. I mentioned there's no one size fits all. Which links are most critical? Which kinds of data have the longest shelf lives and sensitivity? And what protocols should be used to secure them? Okay. I was speaking with someone earlier about IoT devices, right? They have small footprints. That has implications on the kinds of protocols that we can use for security. So network architecture is it's a good kind of lens to look through. And the applications as well, as quantum computers start to be connected over this common fabric of the quantum internet, how do the notions of security and data from zeros and ones to actually qubits, right? These are going to be sensitive data as well in the future. So even at the application layer, we can consider some hybrid architectures. Okay, there are challenges. This is an evolving space. Not many standards around this, but this is a great time to start thinking about these hybrid architectures. Let's talk about what crypto agility actually means, right? Let's standardize that. Let's have the conversations. There are geopolitics involved. Different nations, different states have different stances on these protocols. So, when we're talking about connecting these networks from a security standpoint, it's important to have those conversations at the geopolitical level as well. Okay, with that, I'll end with some key takeaways that layering your security with both math and physics will certainly not weaken your security, right? You want to get the best of all three worlds here. Information theoretic security. This is the key property that drives a lot of investment and activity in QKD and in quantum networking. This is a property of quantum mechanics that classical cryptographers dream about, right? This is something that to have provable security from any man-in-the-middle attack is a really powerful security property to have. So investing in this technology is really critical. Okay, so if you're interested in learning more about entanglement-based quantum networking or any of these topics, please reach out. We're free to talk and collaborate, and thanks for having me.